Welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. Do you think OJ did it? Today's story is about my own personal experience with premonitions or, UFO-inspired future events. I put this in my book. The link is in the description of my channel. I'll put a picture of the cover. I don't like talking about this, and I don't like talking about it for all the right reasons. I have no idea how much information is true. I don't know if it's a manipulation. Let me start over. Back in 2018, I had a run-in with some phenomena, and during that run-in, I had some missing time. And after that run-in, I was inundated by these, I call it the movie or the video, where it's just this constant running of this video like over and over. And the next day I knew that they had shown me something. I don't like to get into details too much because when you have missing time and things get choppy, and let me just tell you what I believe based on this event. So I believe they showed me something that night that I call the video. And I believe that many people report this. I do believe this happened to me. And I don't like talking about it. In fact, after it happened, I swore I'd never tell anybody about it. The very next day, I told my girlfriend, and she begged me to write it down. She was like, "You have to write this down." She was always like that. When we had run-ins with strange things, UFOs or phenomena or whatever, she was always trying to get me to collect evidence, so take pictures and videos and write it down. And I was never like that. I always tried to forget about it, put it out of my mind, swear I'd never talk about it again, and all that type of stuff. So anyway, the next day I couldn't stop thinking about all this stuff they had showed me. And one of the things they showed me was a nuclear facility being bombed it was like a first strike against a nuclear facility in China. And I don't know anything about China really. The next day this movie was going on in my head over and over. And so I wanted to, this is going to sound so stupid. I wanted to debunk it, right? Like my first reaction was like, if I could prove that what they showed me was false, then I could forget about it. You know what I mean? Like if they lied to me, if this is a psyop, if they're just manipulating me or messing with me, then I could, look up some of this information. And I was trying to think about like, what parts of this information were legitimate. So they showed me a nuclear war. They showed me a massive flood that destroys a lot of cities, completely changes the world. A lot of that flood destroys a lot of islands in South America, like big islands too, like with a lot of people. Completely changes the face of the earth. I think in the book I wrote down I didn't know what caused it, whether it was like a meteorite or the nuclear war or whatever. But that's kind of just because, like I said, when you have missing time, you have this kind of choppy memory, and I didn't want to say something that wasn't true. So I didn't want to say like, oh, it's a meteorite, and then there's also a nuclear war, and there's also this, and there. I just kind of wrote some things down about what I saw, and so anyway, I still don't want to talk about this. My problem is if I don't talk about it and something does happen, then it's my fault. If there's anything that you could actually do to change it, I didn't do it. In fact, the reason I'm talking about it is because of Calvin Parker. So back in the, I believe it's 60s, I have to look it up, but the Pascagoula UFO abduction case with, I believe it was Ray Hickson and Calvin Parker. No. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, excuse me. So during that, I'll try again. The Pascagoula abduction event with Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson, before Calvin Parker died, he had an admission that it was published in a newspaper article that they showed him this nuclear war. And that's kind of what happened to me, where they show you this kind of future event. It's not just one event, but future events, like these crazy things that happen all over the world. Nuclear war, these massive floods, this pestilence, like plague, drought, like death of like all these animals and things like that. Like just, you see these cows laid out all over the place, and you don't want to believe it, right? They show you this, you don't want to believe it. You want to believe they're messing with you, or it's some sort of test, you know. But when I saw that Calvin Parker, you know, basically said like for 50 years I didn't tell anybody, I think he said something to the effect of like the way he got treated when he came out about the UFO led him not to tell anybody about what they showed him. Because if you're not going to believe a UFO exists, then you're definitely not going to believe this. Something to that effect. Like he held it in for 50 years and he you know, was releasing it. And he's passed away. Rest in peace. But anyway, they showed me this nuclear event and floods and all this stuff. They showed me where I was born getting completely flooded, like it doesn't even exist anymore. It's not even on the map anymore. So I see this, and the next day I can't get it out of my head, and I decide that I'm going to debunk it. Like I'm going to go online and I'm going to look up information. And one of the first things I looked up was this Chinese nuclear base. And it exists. It's a real place. And it looks exactly like what they showed me. Like the buildings, the location, everything. And I mean, it shouldn't surprise anybody that it exists. But, you know, imagine if you've never seen Hawaii before, like you were born in the Amazon, and somebody comes down and shows you a picture, and then you see it in real life, and you're like, oh, that was a real place the whole time. It's kind of like that, where I didn't know about this place. They also showed me some stuff like nuclear weapons in Jordan, the country, and I had no idea that Jordan had any sort of nuclear bases or anything. You know, they showed me war, like they showed me a lot of war, like marching armies, these massive armies that are being built like by countries all over the world, countries you wouldn't even expect, like millions of marching people of all these different nations, like this big war. And I mean, I guess that's it. They showed me all this stuff, and then I have no idea if I'm going to release this video. Just so we're clear, I don't want this to be true at all. And I'm really afraid to talk about it, because if it's not true, I look even worse. I mean, I've got witnesses to the UFOs that have plagued me my whole life. You know, most of them won't come forward, but I've got multiple witnesses that have been there and saw this stuff. And, you know, if you say something like there's going to be a nuclear war, and then I grow to be 100 years old, it never happens. All that other stuff that happened to me gets thrown into, and I can't trust this information at all. In fact, at the time when they showed me this stuff, I didn't want to believe it. I still don't want to believe it. It was years later when some things started happening on the news, and I started seeing these things, and I was like, that's exactly what they showed me. Like they showed me that exact thing, you know, years before it happened. And that's when I was like, that's when I went from trying to deny it to questioning whether or not it's legitimate, like whether or not they're legitimately giving us future information. And then you have to ask why. Like, why would they give it to anybody? And I talked to someone once that said, well, maybe they knew that you if they really do have the ability to access the future, maybe they knew you'd tell people about it. Like maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe they're purposely influencing so that way we can prevent it from happening. And they knew that you'd run your mouth about it. They knew you'd make a video about it. You write a book. You tell people, which is a reasonable. It's a reasonable assertion, but it could be a psyop. It could be manipulation. It could be a test. We do this to people all the time. We test their intelligence. We test their emotional reactions. We test, how they deal with certain information. We prank people where we pretend that their parents are dead and they freak out, and then we videotape it and put it online and laugh about it. So I really can't say if it's true. I can't say if it's real. I can't say if we're going to get hit by a meteorite that's going to flood a bunch of stuff. I can't say whether this nuclear war is on the horizon. Oh, and by the way, a bunch of people survive. So it's not like the end. Maybe I should have started with that. Don't get me wrong. It's the end of a lot of things if it does happen. But it's not the end of us, which is kind of nice, I guess, that they would show you that. At least you have hope. They didn't take that away. They showed you some messed up stuff, but they didn't steal the most important part of life, which is that there's a future. If none of us believed in tomorrow, there would be no reason to live today. So this video probably won't see the light of day. If it does, I'll probably reshoot it, because I didn't think when I wrote this down, like I write all my stories down and stuff and notes and things. I've got a bunch of them, just different cases and stuff like that, different things that have happened over the years and ideas that I have about, I've got firsthand experience, so I have a pretty good, at least I have a pretty good way of analyzing some of this information, right? And kind of looking at it through my own lens of experience and kind of deciding like, maybe we should talk about it. Even the hoax stuff, I've done videos of things that are almost certainly a hoax. But the whole point is to open up, debate about the situation and, and kind of look at it through a lens of, the whole point is to look at this information through an unbiased lens and kind of just ask questions. And maybe it's legitimate, maybe it's not, but we have a better chance of figuring it out together than we do if, we allow, let's say, mainstream media or government to decide for us what's true and what's not. We know how well that's gone over the years. So anyway, is there a nuclear war on the horizon? Is this just a manipulation? Did I get bonked on the head and, had a fever dream or something? I don't know. But I can say that with all of my other experiences and the witnesses that have been there for those, I would have to argue that this is much more than simply something that went on in my head. And if it is true, then we have a lot of work to do as a society to guarantee that there's always going to be a future for us. And we have to get rid of motorcycles because they're very loud and I can't run my YouTube channel. So down with motorcycles. Actually, that's not true. Just give me I want one. But that's not the point. Mine's going to be quiet. All right, electric, actually. Silent. All right, fast, very silent. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. If you'd like to support our channel, go to the description or in the pinned comment down below. That's The Unacceptable News. Don't like, don't subscribe, just run.